The day my world shattered was just an ordinary day, until it wasn't. My fiancé and I were supposed to be married in a month. We had spent years building our future, making plans, dreaming of what was to come. But it only took a single moment for everything to disappear. That morning, everything felt perfect. I woke up to the sound of his voice humming in the kitchen, the scent of fresh coffee filling the air. He kissed my forehead and smiled, his eyes filled with love. "You look beautiful in anything," he said as we prepared to go dress shopping. "I can't wait to see you walk down the aisle." The car ride was peaceful. He drove while I scrolled through pictures of dresses, asking for his opinion, even though I knew he didn't care much about the details. All he cared about was me. I remember leaning back in my seat, closing my eyes just for a moment. "Just rest," he whispered. "I'll wake you when we get there." Those were the last words he ever said to me. When I woke up, I was somewhere else entirely. The room was cold, sterile. Machines beeped softly in the background, and my body felt heavy, foreign. I tried to move, but pain shot through every limb. Panic clawed at my chest as I tried to understand where I was. A nurse appeared, her face etched with relief and sorrow. She explained everything. How I had been in a coma for 11 days, how I had survived, and how he hadn't. Her words didn't make sense. I refused to believe them. He wasn't gone. He couldn't be. We had plans, a future. We were supposed to be married in just a few weeks. The ring on my finger was proof of that. But when I screamed for him, for someone to tell me they had made a mistake, all I got were hushed voices and comforting hands that couldn't bring him back. I broke. The weight of it crushed me. My body trembled with uncontrollable sobs. My chest ached as if it were caving in. Nothing felt real anymore. I had gone to sleep beside the love of my life, and I had woken up in a world where he didn't exist. The grief was unbearable, suffocating. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Each second dragged on endlessly, every beat of my heart a cruel reminder that I was still here, and he wasn't. Nurses spoke to me, but their voices were distant, like they were underwater. Eventually, they told me about the accident. A driver, trying to overtake a truck, had miscalculated. He swerved into our lane. The impact had been devastating. My fiancé had fought to stay awake, asking about me, holding on just long enough to make sure I was okay before he slipped away. He had died alone. That thought haunted me. He had spent his last moments in pain, afraid, without me there to hold his hand, to tell him it would be okay. I hated that I had been asleep, unaware of the world shattering around me. The guilt consumed me. What if I hadn't closed my eyes? What if I had asked him to take a different road? What if I had just stayed awake? Every scenario played over and over in my mind, each one ending the same way. He was gone, and I was here, left to suffer without him. When they finally discharged me, I should have felt relief. But instead, I felt terror. Going home meant stepping into a space that was supposed to be ours, a home that still smelled like him, a bed that still had his side untouched, a future that no longer existed. Walking through the door felt like stepping into a tomb. His jacket still hung over the chair. His shoes were by the door. Everything was just as we had left it that morning. But the house was empty, lifeless. I crumbled. The days blurred together. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. The world outside kept moving, but I was frozen in time, stuck in the last moment we had shared. Friends and family reached out, but I couldn't respond. What could I say? That I wished I had died instead of him? That every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face and woke up gasping for air? Weeks passed. The texts and calls slowed. The casseroles left on my doorstep stopped coming. People moved on, but I couldn't. One day, my mother came over with a box. "These should be with you," she said softly, placing it on the table. It was filled with his things, his watch, his favorite sweater, photographs of us together. I stared at it for hours, unable to bring myself to open it. Touching those things meant accepting that he was really gone. It took months before I found the strength to leave the house. Even a short walk felt impossible. But eventually, I took my first steps outside, feeling the sun on my face for the first time in what felt like years. It didn't feel good. It felt wrong, like I was betraying him just by existing. The hardest moment came when I visited his grave. Seeing his name etched in stone made it all real. I fell to my knees, tracing the letters with my fingers as tears blurred my vision. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for not being there, for surviving, for waking up in a world without him." Therapy helped, but it didn't heal me. Nothing could. It only taught me how to function, how to put one foot in front of the other even when it felt impossible. Years passed, and eventually I met someone new. I never expected to, and for a long time, I resisted it. My heart still belonged to the man I lost. But the new man in my life was patient, kind. He didn't try to replace what I had lost. He simply held my hand when I needed support. But I still wore my fiancé's ring. Even as I learned to smile again, even as I built something new, I couldn't let go. He had been my past, my present, my future. One night, my new partner looked at me with understanding in his eyes. "You'll always love him," he said. "And that's okay." For the first time, I believed that. Moving forward didn't mean leaving him behind. It meant carrying him with me in a different way. Life after loss is cruel. It's painful. It's a slow, agonizing process of learning to breathe again. But I have come to accept that love never truly dies. It changes, it shifts, but it never fades. I will always carry him with me. And somehow I will keep going.